The most dangerous moment in a king's life is not when his enemies attack. It is when he discovers he built his empire on the wrong truth. Lucien DeLuca believed one thing for 15 years, that mercy had killed his mother, that weakness had destroyed his family, that hesitation was death. So he became something the underworld had never seen before, a king who never hesitated. But what if the past he built his empire on was a lie? Because in the shadows of New York's criminal empire, someone had returned. Not with guns, not with armies, but with the most dangerous weapon of all, the truth. And before this war is over, Lucien DeLuca may lose the one thing. Welcome to the Mafia's Obsession, the home of cinematic mafia stories where power, betrayal, and loyalty collide. If you enjoy intense crime stories, powerful characters, and dramatic underworld empires, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next chapter. Because tonight, we continue the story of Lucien DeLuca, the man who ruled New York without raising his voice until the past returned to destroy everything he loved. This is Season 2. The city believed the war was over. Markets stabilized, alliances realigned, rumors quieted into polished denials. But power never settles. It only waits. Lucien DeLuca stood alone in his office at 4:17 a.m., watching the skyline glow in fragile peace. The vault had detonated exactly as calculated. Romano's leverage fractured. Volkov withdrew into cold neutrality. The third faction vanished. Externally, equilibrium. Internally, expansion. Behind him, Elena Rossi studied layered financial architecture on a transparent screen. The newly formed joint holding entity, structured through Phase 2, was stabilizing faster than projected. Romano is restructuring through shell subsidiaries in Lisbon, she said calmly. Lucien didn't turn. He won't attack directly, he replied. Not yet. You sound certain. I am. He finally faced her. His gaze held something new. Not possession. Assessment. Elena had not merely survived Season 1. She had reshaped it. Matteo entered quietly. There's movement tied to Adriano's final offshore advisor. Lucien's expression did not change. Alessandro Vieri? Yes. The name lingered. The man who advised mercy. The man who whispered restraint into Adriano's ear. The man who disappeared after Lucien took control. Elena looked up slowly. Is he relevant? Lucien's voice was disturbingly calm. If he's resurfacing, he's intentional. Outside, the city glowed. Inside, something old began breathing again. Alessandro Vieri did not announce his return. He introduced it. At 9:32 a.m., a dormant Adriano-era investment vehicle reactivated in Zurich. At 9:35, two political donors tied historically to DeLuca foundations shifted their allegiances. By noon, a subtle tremor passed through the underworld. Lucien received confirmation without visible reaction. He's not attacking, Matteo said. He's adjusting perception. Lucien's tone remained steady. Vieri never liked open conflict. Elena studied a data projection. He's isolating you slowly. Lucien's eyes flickered. Explain. He's not undermining your empire, she said.
He's undermining your myth. Silence. Vieri's movements were not violent. They were narrative. Articles questioning DeLuca consolidation appeared anonymously. Former Adriano associates resurfaced with interviews about lost tradition. Whispers of Lucien's severity being destabilizing. Matteo exhaled. He's reframing you. Lucien stepped toward the window. My reputation was built on inevitability. And he's introducing doubt, Elena said quietly. Lucien turned toward her. You're not concerned? Elena met his gaze. I don't fear narratives. I fear timing. Lucien studied her carefully.
You think this is opening move? It is. Across the Atlantic, Vieri sat in a quiet villa reviewing market data and press feeds. He smiled faintly. Lucien DeLuca believed power was control. Vieri believed power was perception. And perception could fracture even the calmest king. What Lucien did not realize yet was that Alessandro Vieri had not returned to fight a war. He had returned to change the past. And before this battle ended, that past would cost Lucien DeLuca more than his empire. The first death of Season 2 was not ordered by Lucien, and that unsettled him more than if it had been. A mid-level DeLuca financial courier was found dead in Brooklyn. No signs of torture, no theft, no message carved into steel. Only a single envelope placed beside the body. Inside, a photograph. Adriano DeLuca shaking hands with Alessandro Vieri 15 years earlier. Lucien stood over the body, expression carved from stone. He's invoking your father, Matteo said. Lucien didn't blink. He's invoking mercy. Elena joined them minutes later. She studied the photograph. This isn't intimidation, she said quietly. It's memory. Lucien's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He wants you thinking about that night, Elena continued softly. Lucien's voice dropped. I don't revisit that night. Then he'll make you. Silence settled. Lucien turned to Matteo. No retaliation. Matteo paused. None? None. Elena looked at him carefully. You're letting him escalate. Lucien's gaze remained disturbingly calm. I don't move because I'm provoked. I move because I choose. But as he walked away, the photograph remained in his mind. His father's hand, Vieri's whisper, mercy, and the hallway that followed. 3 days later, Elena received her first direct contact. Encrypted, clean, professional. Not a threat, an archive. She opened it alone in the penthouse study. Files from Adriano's final year. Meeting transcripts. Private advisories. One audio clip labeled March 14th. She hesitated, then pressed play. Adriano's voice filled the room. Measured, traditional, composed. He's begging, Adriano said. Vieri's voice followed. Spare him. It sends strength. A pause. Adriano exhaled slowly. You're certain? Mercy, when seen, builds loyalty. The clip ended. Elena sat very still. Vieri hadn't just advised mercy. He framed it as strategy. She closed the file and stared at the skyline. Lucien entered moments later. You're quiet. Reviewing history. He watched her carefully. Vieri contacted you. It wasn't a question. Yes. What did he send? Elena hesitated. Context. Lucien's eyes darkened slightly. You'll show me. Yes, but not yet. And that fraction of delay was the first fracture. At that moment, Elena Rossi understood something Lucien did not. The story he had built his entire life around might be wrong. And if Lucien discovered the truth the wrong way, it would ignite a war no one could stop. Vieri's first visible move came through politics. A city council investigation opened into DeLuca philanthropic tax shelters. Clean on paper, dangerous in optics. Lucien watched the press conference without reaction. He's isolating you publicly, Matteo said. Yes. And Elena? Lucien's gaze shifted toward the study. She's thinking. Inside, Elena replayed the audio again. Mercy, when seen, builds loyalty. She understood something Lucien did not. Vieri had not been naive. He had been patient. If Adriano had lived longer, the spared lieutenant may have become leverage later. The hallway that took Lucien's mother may not have been Mercy's fault alone. Elena closed the file. Lucien entered quietly. You're distant, he said. I'm analyzing. Alone. She met his eyes. Sometimes clarity requires distance. Lucien stepped closer. Distance invites influence. And control invites blindness, she replied. Silence thickened between them. Outside, the city hummed in fragile balance. Inside, Vieri's real objective began to surface. He wasn't attacking Lucien's empire. He was attacking Lucien's certainty. And certainty had always been his armor. Lucien DeLuca did not fear enemies. He feared erosion. Gunfire could be answered. Betrayal could be corrected. War could be won. But erosion was patient. It reshaped stone without asking permission. 3 days after the council investigation announcement, 2 longtime DeLuca political donors publicly distanced themselves. Not dramatically, respectfully. Carefully worded statements about diversifying affiliations. Lucien read both statements twice. They were loyal to Adriano, Matteo said quietly. Lucien's jaw tightened slightly. They were loyal to stability. And Vieri is suggesting you are instability? Lucien did not respond immediately. Instead, he walked toward the window, hands clasped behind his back. Below, traffic moved like disciplined veins. Instability is visible, he said finally. I am not. Matteo hesitated. Public perception may disagree. Lucien turned slowly. Public perception is noise. But even as he said it, he knew Vieri was not targeting noise. He was targeting narrative. Inside the penthouse study, Elena traced Vieri's reactivation patterns. They weren't aggressive. They were surgical. He wasn't dismantling DeLuca power. He was repositioning it. And that required patience far beyond revenge. Her screen flickered. Another encrypted drop. This time, a financial memo from Adriano's final year. Subject line, long-term structural leverage. Elena leaned closer. Vieri had drafted a contingency strategy involving political optics, public philanthropy, and narrative dominance. An evolution of DeLuca influence that Adriano never fully implemented. Lucien entered quietly. You're learning something. Yes. From him? From the past. That distinction mattered. But Lucien was beginning to feel something unfamiliar. Not jealousy, not anger. Displacement. And displacement unsettled kings more than opposition. Vieri requested a meeting, not through Lucien, through Elena. The invitation was elegant, a private gallery exhibition in Soho featuring post-war Italian art. No security threats, no coded aggression, just culture. Lucien read the message without visible reaction. "You won't go," Matteo said immediately. Elena stood across the room. "I will." Lucien's gaze shifted slowly. "Why?" "Because he's not inviting me to intimidate. He's inviting me to understand." Lucien stepped closer. "And you believe understanding him benefits us?" "I believe ignoring him benefits him." Silence. Lucien's voice lowered.
What are you doing? You can't just walk.
"He is not harmless. I know. And he is not nostalgic. I know." Their eyes locked. Lucien wasn't trying to control her, but he was measuring risk. "You will not attend alone." "I wasn't planning to." The gallery was dimly lit, quiet, curated with deliberate restraint. Vieri stood beside a painting of a burning cathedral when Elena approached. He was older than Lucien remembered from old photographs, silver at the temples, measured posture, eyes sharp with retained calculation. "Elena Rossi." "Alessandro Vieri." They did not shake hands. "I admire courage," Vieri said softly. "It takes courage to stand beside a man like Lucien." "It takes clarity," Elena corrected. Vieri smiled faintly. "Clarity is rare around power." "And manipulation?" she asked calmly. "Necessary." They walked slowly past the paintings. "You sent me Adriano's files." "Yes." "Why?" "Because Lucien built himself against a simplified memory." Elena studied him carefully. "You advised mercy." "I advised strategy." "And it cost his mother." Vieri's expression remained composed.
Or perhaps it revealed enemies who would have acted regardless. Elena's pulse slowed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Lucien will not hear it from me, but he may hear it from you." "And why would I deliver your narrative?" Vieri stopped walking. "Because you love him." The word landed quietly between them. Elena did not react visibly. Vieri continued. "And love, when real, seeks truth." Across the street, DeLuca surveillance watched every entrance. Lucien sat in a black car 2 blocks away, still, unblinking. He did not trust Vieri. But what unsettled him more was that Elena chose to listen. Lucien did not confront her when she returned. That was not his style.
"We need to talk.
He observed.
Now."
Elena entered the penthouse at 11:32 p.m. Her posture steady, her breathing even. Lucien stood near the bar, untouched glass in hand. "He's disciplined," she said first. Lucien's eyes narrowed slightly. "He always was." "He believes your father's death wasn't about mercy." Lucien's voice remained calm. "What does he believe it was about?" "Timing." Silence. Lucien set the glass down deliberately. "Explain." "He believes the lieutenant who was spared was already compromised by a third party." Lucien's jaw tightened. A convenient revision. Or an inconvenient truth. Lucien stepped closer. "You trust him?" I don't trust anyone. I evaluate. Lucien's gaze sharpened. And your evaluation? Elena hesitated. He's not trying to destroy you. Lucien's voice dropped colder. He's trying to reshape me. Yes. And you? I'm trying to understand if that reshaping is evolution. The word lingered. Evolution. Lucien turned away slightly. I do not evolve under pressure. No, Elena said quietly. You harden. That landed. Lucien didn't respond. But something in his silence shifted. For the first time in years, someone was not questioning his brutality. They were questioning its origin. Lucien DeLuca's empire had faced enemies before. But this was something else. Because Alessandro Vieri was not attacking with guns. He was attacking with truth. And truth could fracture even the strongest empire. The first fracture inside the DeLuca organization came quietly. So quietly, most men did not notice it. One captain requested reassignment to overseas operations, a polite request, a respectful withdrawal. Lucien approved it without hesitation. Matteo frowned. He's testing the waters. Yes. And you let him leave. Lucien's gaze remained disturbingly calm. I don't chain men who doubt. But doubt spreads. Lucien stepped closer to Matteo. Only if I chase it. Across the city, Vieri received confirmation. Lucien had not retaliated against political pressure, had not attacked publicly, had not silenced dissent aggressively. He was absorbing. Vieri smiled. Absorption required patience, but patience strained certainty. That evening, Elena stood beside Lucien on the balcony. You're holding back. Yes. Why? Lucien's answer was immediate. Because rage is predictable. And? And he expects me to repeat my pattern. Elena studied him carefully. And if your pattern is wrong? Lucien turned slowly. My pattern kept me alive. And cost you something. The air between them thickened. Lucien did not respond, because she wasn't wrong. The violent break had not yet come, but pressure was building. At 2:14 a.m., a DeLuca data center was breached. Not for theft, for exposure. Selective files leaked to the press. Not criminal, not illegal, but severe. Evidence of Lucien's aggressive consolidation tactics. Internal memos about eliminating rivals. Strategic language stripped of context. Headlines followed. DeLuca's iron grip. Fear as governance. Lucien read them in silence. Matteo entered cautiously. He's painting you as a tyrant. Lucien's expression remained still. He's painting what I am. And you're not concerned? Lucien looked up slowly. I am not concerned with fear. But Elena might be. That landed differently. Lucien dismissed Matteo and walked to the penthouse. Elena stood in the study, watching the news feed scroll. You're calm, she observed. Yes. Even now? Lucien's voice was disturbingly steady. Fear strengthens order. Elena turned toward him fully. Fear isolates. Silence. Lucien stepped closer. I am not isolated. Elena's gaze didn't waver. Not yet. The tension wasn't explosive. It was quiet, which made it more dangerous. Outside, the city hummed with uncertainty. Inside, Alessandro Vieri's strategy was working.
He had not fired a shot. He had not declared war. He had introduced doubt. And doubt, inside a man who built himself on certainty, was combustible. Lucien DeLuca did not lose sleep. He removed variables. But Alessandro Vieri was not behaving like a variable. He was behaving like a mirror. At 3:08 a.m., Lucien stood alone in the lower chamber beneath DeLuca Tower. Stone walls, no echo, no distractions. The only place in the city where silence stretched without performance. Matteo entered quietly. The Zurich accounts linked to Vieri have tripled in liquidity in 48 hours. Through whose channels? Former Adriano-era brokers. Lucien's jaw tightened subtly. Men who once toasted his father were shifting toward Vieri. Gradually. They believe he represents stability, Matteo continued. Lucien turned slowly. I represent inevitability. Yes, but inevitability feels aggressive right now. Lucien's eyes cooled further. He is not attacking my power. He is attacking my temperament. Upstairs, Elena reviewed more files Vieri had sent. This batch was different. Personal correspondence. Letters from Adriano to Vieri. Handwritten, measured, concerned. One line stood out. Lucien sees strength as eradication.
I worry he confuses survival with leadership. Elena exhaled slowly. Lucien had never seen this letter. He had inherited an empire, not his father's doubts. She closed the file. Because information was leverage, and leverage had weight. The betrayal arrived quietly. A senior DeLuca strategist named Carlo Ventresca was caught routing minor communications through an encrypted Zurich channel. Lucien summoned him. The lower chamber door closed behind Carlo with a heavy metallic sound. Carlo entered pale but composed. I was ensuring optionality, he said quickly. Vieri offers stabilization. Lucien studied him with disturbingly steady eyes. You sought a backup. I sought balance. The word echoed. Balance. Lucien stepped closer. Balance suggests I am insufficient. Carlo swallowed. That's not what I meant. Lucien's voice was calm, almost gentle. Do you know why my mother died? Carlo blinked, confused. No. Lucien's gaze hardened. Because mercy was misread. Silence. And doubt spreads faster than bullets. Lucien dismissed the room. Carlo remained alone in the chamber. 2 hours passed. Isolation, anticipation, psychological dismantling. When Lucien returned, Carlo was trembling. Choose, Lucien said quietly. Absolute loyalty or exit. Carlo whispered, Absolute loyalty. Lucien nodded, then shot him. 1 bullet, center mass, clean. No rage, no theatrics, but unnecessary. Matteo saw it immediately. Lucien had not corrected a threat. He had silenced doubt. And that difference mattered. Elena knew before anyone told her. Lucien entered the penthouse at midnight. Suit immaculate, expression calm, eyes colder. Carlo is dead, she said softly. Yes.
For what? For erosion. Silence. Elena stepped closer. He confessed. Yes. You gave him a choice. Yes. And then killed him. Lucien did not deny it.
He would have doubted again. And that justifies execution? Lucien's voice was disturbingly steady. Yes. Elena's gaze sharpened. That wasn't correction. That was fear. Lucien's jaw tightened. I do not fear. You fear repeating your father. Silence detonated quietly between them. Lucien stepped closer. Do not reduce me to that. I'm not reducing you, she said calmly. I'm recognizing you. He looked at her like she had crossed a boundary. You think I'm unraveling. I think you're reacting. Lucien's voice dropped lower. He is pushing, and you are listening. I'm evaluating, and evaluation invites doubt. Elena did not move. Maybe doubt is necessary. Lucien stared at her, long, unblinking. For the first time since season 1, the tension was not external. It was inside him. And Vieri understood something critical. Lucien DeLuca was not being attacked. He was being forced to confront himself. And when a man built on certainty begins to fracture, violence becomes inevitable. The breaking point came in public. Lucien targeted Marco Silvestri, Vieri's closest strategist, the man shaping the political narrative against him. Silvestri was attending a private dinner in Manhattan. Lucien arrived without warning. The restaurant fell silent as he walked in. Silvestri stood slowly. Lucien. The first strike was not a gunshot. It was a punch. Direct, precise, personal. Silvestri crashed into a glass table. Guests screamed. Lucien did not hear them. For the first time in 15 years, he was not calculating. He was reacting. You shaped a narrative around my mother, Lucien said coldly. Silvestri stammered. You misunderstand. Lucien drew the weapon. 3 shots. Loud. Public. Final. Silvestri collapsed across shattered glass. Lucien left the body where it fell. No cleanup. No concealment. A message sent without words. The underworld trembled. Lucien DeLuca, the disturbingly calm king, had broken composure. In that moment, every powerful man in the city realized something unsettling. The calm king they feared had finally remembered how to be angry. And anger, inside a man like Lucien DeLuca, would soon change the course of the war. The file arrived at 2:22 a.m. No sender, no encryption signature, no digital trace. Elena recognized the formatting immediately. Vieri. She opened it slowly, aware that timing mattered more than content. Inside was not strategy, not political positioning. It was surveillance. Footage, time-stamped. The night Lucien's mother died. Elena leaned closer to the screen. The video was grainy, a security camera angle from across the street of the DeLuca estate 15 years earlier. The first clip showed Adriano DeLuca sparing the lieutenant weeks before the murder. Footage Lucien had never seen. Then, the night of the attack. 2 vehicles arrived, not one. The spared lieutenant was not present. Instead, a different crew entered the estate perimeter through a service access point, an access point used only by internal staff. Elena's pulse slowed. There was no visible retaliation, no chaotic revenge. It was calculated infiltration. Then something else. One of the attackers placed a phone call before entering. The camera zoomed poorly, but enough to show the final 4 digits of the number. Elena cross-referenced it through archived records. Her breath stilled. The number belonged to a DeLuca internal logistics handler, not the spared lieutenant, not a rival family. Internal. The mercy had not caused the murder. It had exposed a weakness someone else exploited. Her hand hovered over the screen. This changed everything. Lucien had built his entire philosophy on an incomplete narrative. And if she told him now, he would not react calmly. Lucien sensed the shift before she spoke. Not because he was suspicious, because Elena grew quiet when something mattered. He entered the study at 3:01 a.m. "You're awake?" "Yes." "You're holding something." She didn't deny it. "Yes." Silence stretched. Lucien stepped closer. "Show me." Elena hesitated. "If I show you this, you will not remain composed." Lucien's eyes darkened. "I am always composed." "Not this time." The words hit harder than she expected. "You think I lack discipline." "I think you're human." The word felt like accusation. Lucien's voice cooled further. "Show me." She did. The footage played without commentary. Lucien did not blink, did not move. But his stillness shifted. When the internal logistics number appeared on the screen, something inside him fractured. That line was controlled by your father's inner circle, Elena finished quietly. Lucien stepped back slowly. "This is fabrication." "It isn't." "Vieri sent this." "Yes." "Convenient." "It's verifiable." Lucien's jaw tightened. "Who knew about that service access?" "Very few." Silence expanded into something heavy. For 15 years, Lucien believed mercy invited revenge. But the footage suggested something worse. Betrayal. From inside. Lucien did not shout. He did not break anything. He went silent. Too silent. Matteo found him in the lower chamber an hour later. "Talk to me." Lucien held up the tablet. "Do you recognize this number?" Matteo studied it. His expression shifted. "It belonged to Enrico Dellari." Lucien's voice was disturbingly calm. "Enrico died 2 years after my father." "Yes." "Natural causes?" "So we believed." Lucien's eyes darkened. "Find everyone who interacted with him the year my mother died." Matteo hesitated. "This is old." Lucien's gaze snapped toward him. "Nothing is old." Matteo nodded and left. Lucien remained alone. He replayed the footage again. Not the murder. The mercy. His father's hesitation. Had he hated the wrong thing for 15 years? Had he hardened himself against the wrong memory? He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them colder. If the betrayal had been internal, then someone had shaped his worldview deliberately. And Alessandro Vieri had known. The pregnancy revealed itself quietly. No dramatic collapse, no emergency, just absence. Elena noticed first. She waited 2 days before confirming. Standing alone in the bathroom, holding the result, she did not smile immediately. She thought of war, of Lucien's enemies, of instability. Then she thought of Lucien at 16, standing in a hallway filled with blood. She placed a hand over her abdomen. This child would not grow up in uncertainty. Lucien sensed something different that evening. "You're distracted." Elena turned toward him. "Sit." Lucien obeyed. She stood in front of him, composed. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Lucien did not blink, did not speak, did not move. The words traveled slowly through him. Pregnant. A child. His. His hand moved unconsciously to the back of the chair. "How certain?" "Certain." Lucien stood slowly. He did not celebrate. He processed. A child meant vulnerability. A child meant something he could lose. Finally, he stepped closer. His hand hovered near her waist, then settled there. Careful. Protective. "No one will know," he said quietly. Elena searched his face. "That's your first thought?" "Yes." "Not joy?" Lucien's jaw tightened. Protection. Elena studied him. Lucien DeLuca was capable of love. He simply did not know how to relax around it. But the empire had already begun shifting. A betrayal surfaced within security ranks. A DeLuca perimeter captain named Anton Greco, a man who had served Adriano. Matteo discovered irregular patrol rotations tied to his command. Lucien summoned him. Anton entered calm. "You served my father." "Yes." "You swore loyalty to me." "Yes." "Why are your patrol schedules aligning with external signals?" Anton did not hesitate. "Because your rule is unstable." The room fell silent. "You kill without patience," Anton continued. "You isolate allies. You react emotionally. Vieri represents restoration." Lucien stepped closer. "You believe I am weakening?" "Yes." "And aligning with him secures your future?" "Yes." Lucien's voice lowered. "You mistake calm for instability." Anton swallowed. "You've changed." Lucien's expression hardened. "No, I remembered." He shot Anton without hesitation. This time the execution was not emotional. It was cold, calculated. And Matteo understood something important. Lucien was no longer reacting. He was recalibrating. The intel arrived just before midnight. Vieri would strike 2 locations simultaneously within 48 hours. One, a DeLuca shipping hub controlling 37% of regional leverage. 2, the safe house where Elena was staying. Lucien studied the map in silence. Lucien DeLuca believed he had calculated every possible outcome, every weakness, every betrayal, every move his enemies could make. But within the next hour, he would make the one decision that even kings cannot undo. Matteo stood beside him. "If you move personally to the safe house, the hub falls." "And if I move to the hub?" "The safe house relies on secondary command." Silence. Elena entered the room quietly. "You don't have to choose." Lucien turned toward her.
I always choose. This isn't business, she said softly. This is family. Lucien's voice remained steady. If the hub falls, we fracture permanently. And if I fall? The air froze. Lucien stepped closer. You won't. That's not certainty, she said. That's hope. Lucien did not answer, because she was right. The night of the attack arrived without warning.
The air outside the safe house was still. Too still. Lucien stood at the shipping hub at 1:09 a.m., overseeing defensive deployment personally. Steel containers stretched across the harbor like silent fortresses. Floodlights cut through the darkness. Men waited, weapons ready. Explosions began at 1:17 a.m. Not chaotic, not desperate, calculated. Charges detonated along the eastern perimeter. Lucien moved instantly, issuing commands, redirecting units, anticipating breaches before they happened. Across the region, the safe house perimeter activated secondary defense protocols. Inside the safe house, Elena stood in the reinforced interior corridor. Her hand rested unconsciously over her abdomen. She could hear the distant sound of engines approaching through the forest. Then gunfire. Outside the perimeter. Not distant. Closer than expected. Years later, men would say the war ended that night. They would say Lucien DeLuca won. What they did not understand was that victory sometimes arrives dressed as loss. One of the perimeter captains shouted into the radio, "They're inside!" Lucien's comm device crackled. "Secondary breach at safe house." His jaw tightened. "How long?" 3 minutes to interior corridor." Lucien looked across the burning shipping yard. If he left now, the hub collapsed. 37% of DeLuca leverage gone. All rival factions recalibrated instantly. If he stayed, he trusted the defense teams protecting Elena. Lucien DeLuca had built his empire by choosing structure over emotion. He chose. "Hold position," he ordered the hub command. Then into the radio. "Secure Elena." Gunfire intensified. Inside the safe house, Elena heard boots running through the corridor outside. She moved quickly toward the reinforced nursery chamber. 2 guards fell outside the door. Bullets tore into the walls. She sealed the door and locked it. Inside the small nursery room, Vittoria slept quietly, unaware. A bullet pierced the hallway wall. Another. Then silence. Lucien arrived 9 minutes later. Smoke drifted across the safe house grounds. Bodies lay scattered across the perimeter. Defense had held, technically. Inside the corridor, Elena lay against the wall, conscious, bleeding. 1 stray bullet, not targeted, not execution. Crossfire. Lucien dropped to his knees beside her. For the first time in years, his hands were not steady. "I calculated wrong," he said quietly. Elena's lips curved faintly. "You chose the Empire." "No," Lucien whispered. "I chose habit." She looked toward the nursery door. "Vittoria?" "She's safe." Relief softened her expression. "She will be fearless," Elena said softly. Lucien's jaw tightened violently. "Don't." She lifted her hand slowly and touched his face. "You love me." Not a question, a statement. "Yes." The word escaped him without control. "Then don't become stone again." Her hand slipped from his cheek. Lucien remained there, still, silent, shattered. Outside, distant sirens began to approach. The war was technically won, but the cost was irreversible. Lucien did not scream. He did not rage. He did not order retaliation. He sat beside Elena's body until sunrise. Medical teams confirmed what he already knew within seconds of arrival. The bullet had not been meant for her. That made it worse. Calculated violence he understood. Collateral loss he despised. Matteo stood at a distance, silent. When Lucien finally stood, his movements were precise again. Controlled. Too controlled. Vieri? Lucien asked. Alive, Matteo replied. Relocated to a private airstrip outside Milan. Lucien nodded once. Ground every departure. Already in motion. Lucien walked past the nursery door. He paused. His hand rested briefly on the reinforced frame. Inside, Vittoria slept peacefully. Then he left. Not to grieve, to correct. Across the Atlantic, Alessandro Vieri stood beside a private aircraft. Morning fog rolled across the tarmac. When Lucien approached, Vieri did not look surprised. You chose the hub, Vieri said calmly. Lucien's expression did not move. You chose escalation. I chose exposure, Vieri replied. You chose collateral. Silence hung between them. I did not fire the bullet, Vieri said. Lucien stepped closer. But you created the field. Vieri studied him carefully. You built yourself on a misinterpreted memory. And you built yourself on influence without accountability. Vieri tilted his head slightly. You don't hate me. Lucien's eyes were empty. No. Then what is this? Lucien answered quietly. Completion. There was no speech, no warning, no dramatic confrontation. One gunshot. Clean. Final. Vieri fell backward onto the runway. Lucien turned away immediately. No satisfaction, no relief. The war was over, but nothing had been restored. Elena's funeral was private. No press, no public mourning. Only those who understood silence attended. Lucien stood unmoving as the casket lowered. He did not cry. He did not speak. He did not lean on anyone. When the ceremony ended, Matteo approached carefully. She knew, Matteo said. Lucien's voice remained steady. Yes. She loved you. I know. Silence stretched between them. You don't blame yourself? Matteo asked. Lucien finally turned toward him. I chose habit over presence. That's not blame. It is accuracy. After everyone left, Lucien remained alone. The grave was simple, unmarked publicly. He knelt once, not in weakness, in acknowledgement. You were right, he said quietly. The wind carried the words away. 3 days later, Lucien stood in the penthouse nursery. Vittoria slept peacefully in her crib. The skyline of New York glowed through the tall glass windows. Lucien lifted her carefully into his arms. She stared up at him with steady eyes. Not fragile, observant. You will not inherit doubt, he murmured. Her small fingers wrapped around his hand. Lucien felt something shift. Not softness, purpose. Matteo entered quietly. Romano has requested ceasefire recognition. Granted. Volkov has withdrawn entirely. Good. Matteo studied him. You've become colder. Lucien looked down at his daughter. No. Then what? Lucien answered without hesitation. Precise. Because there would never again be hesitation. Never again a moment where empire and family competed. Now the empire existed for only one purpose: protection. The city adapted quickly. Power structures shifted. Markets stabilized. Fear recalibrated. But something had changed permanently. Lucien DeLuca no longer ruled through inevitability alone. He ruled through the absence of hesitation. Men who once questioned him now understood something worse. Lucien DeLuca had nothing left to lose. Except one thing. And that one thing was untouchable. Late one night, Lucien stood in his office overlooking Manhattan. Elena's final words echoed quietly in memory. Don't become stone again. Lucien closed his eyes, then opened them. He had not become stone. Stone does not remember. Stone does not feel. Lucien remembered everything. He felt everything. He simply refused to let it weaken him. Vittoria stirred in the nursery next door. Lucien lifted her into his arms and looked out across the city lights. You will never stand alone in a hallway of blood, he said softly. And if the world ever tries, his voice became disturbingly calm. It will not survive the correction. Outside, New York glittered, unaware. Inside, a king stood reborn. War had taken his love, but it had not taken his will. And now, Lucien DeLuca no longer ruled for power. He ruled for legacy. The city would remember the war between Lucien DeLuca and Alessandro Vieri. They would remember the betrayals, the politics, the blood. But history rarely remembers the moment that truly changes a man. Because the night Elena Rossi died, Lucien DeLuca stopped ruling for power. He started ruling for legacy. And the world would soon discover something terrifying. A king with nothing left to lose is far more dangerous than a king fighting for control. But Lucien DeLuca was not alone anymore. Because in the quiet nursery of a Manhattan penthouse, a child slept peacefully. And one day, she would inherit an empire built from blood, loyalty, and the memory of a mother who died protecting her. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the Mafia's Obsession for more cinematic mafia stories. And tell us in the comments, did Lucien make the right choice? Or did his empire cost him everything? Because this story is far from over.